Welcome. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today for this important conversation about mental health with this incredible group of artists. We're here today because it's the beginning of Mental Health Month, which starts today. But hopefully, this will get you thinking about the importance of supporting your own mental health. We want to thank Microsoft today for making the stream possible. And I want to introduce myself. I'm Michelle Carlson. I'm the executive director for TeenLine. And TeenLine's a national nonprofit that provides a hotline that youth and young adults can contact anonymously to talk it out with a highly trained team and get some helpful resources. So people from all over the world contact our hotline about whatever they might be struggling with, whether that's being in a fight with a friend to someone who might be feeling suicidal. We really know how good it feels to be able to talk about it with someone, not only because that's really validating, but it kind of alleviates the weight of whatever you're experiencing, which I think is really important right now. When we know this whole coronavirus situation has completely upended our lives in ways that we would have never expected, right? I mean, this pandemic is really just something that's unprecedented. So we don't have a way of sort of navigating it. There's no roadmap for this. We're told, to keep ourselves healthy by wearing masks, social distancing, you know, following the stay-at-home orders, which really kind of makes, I don't know about you, but makes a lot of us feel really disconnected from loved ones and also our former lives. And I think as we're seeing the weeks go by, we're really starting to see the effects on our mental health. People are feeling really stressed, they're feeling anxious, they're feeling fearful. And that's a really natural reaction to what's going on now. I mean, it's a really challenging time, I think, for all of us across the world. But I honestly believe that we can help each other get through this together. And that's why we're here today. I'd like to start out this discussion by introducing Ari, who is the impetus for this incredible event, and then have a discussion with our esteemed panelists here today, and then end with some questions and answers or some questions from our audience. So Ari, just start with you. Would you just mind sharing a little bit about why you're so passionate about mental health and sort of what the reason behind this event was?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Michelle, and I want to say thank you to Alessia and Anne-Marie and Sophia. Thank you guys so much for doing this. So this is something I've been wanting to do a lot more of. I started a foundation called the Blue Boy Foundation last year, around when I released a song called "Sad Forever," which I kind of wrote at probably the lowest point in my life when I was experiencing, and I didn't really realize it, like what it was at the time, but I was experiencing like really bad depression and OCD, and it was kind of right before I got like officially diagnosed. And I think like as I really got out of that bad place, I realized, one, that I wanted to release the song and take all like the proceeds and create this foundation and distribute them to various organizations that are working around mental health. And I think the longer I've been doing this, and kind of like the more I've kind of sat with myself and in my kind of ongoing ups and downs, I've wanted to find more ways to be engaging around the conversation, and yeah, just doing whatever is possible. So I mean, obviously wanted to do more stuff like this in person. That was sort of like the goal this year, but that's obviously not possible. So I know this might be kind of funky doing this as like a live stream and everybody's like on video chat and stuff, and I hope that we don't it doesn't get awkward with us talking over each other and stuff. But I'm just excited we could do this. And yeah, I just want to say thank you guys again for tuning in. And yeah, I'm excited for the conversation. So yeah.
Great. I think maybe we can go around the screen, I should say. I'm going to say room. And introduce yourselves. Want to start?
Who wants to go first?
Sophia, you want to start? Just introduce yourself to.
Who wants to start?
No, that's okay. So so we know who's here, and so really this just to get the conversation started. I think it's really, I want to just say I think it's really important we're having this conversation because I think it's really validating to people to know that they're not the only ones struggling right now and that they don't have to go through this alone. And I'd like to find out. I mean, I know we're hearing on our hotline a significant increase in people contacting us about stress and anxiety, about loneliness, and a lot of talk about disappointment, right? So, hearing a lot of disappointment around not being able to spend time with friends, with significant others, maybe grandparents. And then a lot of talk about some of the, grieving some of those losses of those major life events for some people, like graduation. So I'd like to find out, and I know our audience watching would love to find out from our panelists. So maybe we could start with Sophia. How has COVID-19 and the whole social distancing affected your mental health? And what sort of challenges have you faced?
Of course. Well, for anything, Ari, thanks for having me here. It's such a pleasure, especially I'm super passionate about this topic. Michelle, nice to meet you. I'm Marie and Alice. I'm a huge fan of your music and art and everything. You inspire me so much. So this is even more exciting, even. And yeah, I mean, for me, coronavirus, well, I'll introduce myself real quick. I'm a singer-songwriter as well. I'm from Mexico. I moved to LA about 7, 8 years ago. And actually, my family they're all in Mexico right now for quarantine. By the way, I don't know if am I supposed to say quarantine or quarantine? Is it quarantine? Okay, thank you. Quarantine. And yeah, I don't know. It's funny because even before quarantine, there was this part of me that wanted to get to know myself more, and like I wanted to distance myself from like society, literally. And I started doing that in November-ish. I just had the feeling in me that I wanted to like get to know who I am more. So I literally started quarantine even before the actual quarantine. And it's been a really beautiful journey for me as like, I've been growing so much in the past couple months. And it's been really interesting. And I just want to share a little story real quick because I just realized all these things. So I went through depression when I was like 15, which is almost 10 years ago. And I knew back then that I was going through depression, but I didn't know. I not necessarily depression, but I knew I was like super sad, and I knew why, but I didn't know like the root of it. And in this past months, I've been like learning so many things, and what I realized is that everything that I was going through at that time was very like disconnected to who I was in essence. Like I was in a girl group that I didn't like, the people I was surrounded with, I didn't like the music, the way I was dressed, like everything. Literally, my first name is Ursula, but that's my mom's name, and in the group, my name was Ursula. Like everything was just like so far away from who I was, and that just led me to being, sad and sad and sad, and like just because again, I feel like feeling all these emotions like anxiety, anger, sadness, all these things are what makes us human. It's okay to feel them. But the thing is when we just like don't maybe like when instead of them being emotions, they become like a state of, it's not a state of mind, it's like a anemic state of, I don't know how to say it, but so I was thinking about that, and the whole process for me during quarantine and even before quarantine was being like, who am I? And like getting to know myself. I even know how my ego's name, which is Ursula, and like when it shows up, how it speaks to me, which is that little voice that we all have that tells us like all this kind of stuff. So and what I found out is like, how can we heal and accept and love ourselves if we don't know who we are first? So during quarantine, my biggest challenge has been that, and obviously missing my family, missing my friends, and all of that stuff that I think we all deal with. And it's been on the good side better for me because I'm so bad with FaceTime and all this stuff, and I've been pushing myself to do it more. So that's been great. But yeah, it's been more for me the challenge that to like get to know myself and and everything, and it's been really beautiful. I'm in a moment in my life where I feel like so excited about everything and so inspired. So yeah.
I love that because it's given you the time, it sounds like, to self-reflect, right? And sometimes it's hard to go there and sit in like uncomfortable emotions, right? But I think you're absolutely right. I think that is part of the process, and we'll be talking about it later, is finding ways to help get you through those moments, but being able to know that this is a moment, right? And it doesn't have to last forever, and we'll get through this together with each other.
Yeah, I feel
So,
like sorry, can I just say something real
yeah,
quick as well?
please, yes.
I feel like it's like for the first time, and I don't know, I imagine like everybody's lives, like it's like we're so used to, from like the day we're born, or like the day we have consciousness, knowing like, okay, like I go to school from these hours to these hours, I come home, like I go to daycare, you know what I mean? Like, and then like you get older and it's like school and then homework and friends, and then it's like we're on this like regimen of like how life is supposed to go, right? It's like, all the way through. You're really into like your early 20s, for most people, and then after that it's work, and you know what I mean, and it's like this continuous like cycle of like sort of society prepares us for like what, a mold for what life is supposed to look like, and then all of a sudden it's like all, for a lot of people, all out the window, and it's like, what do you do with yourself? Because as like humans, like we're not really used to like that time, and I think that's really, can be really challenging, because I think that can cause a lot of anxiety, because when you're really distracted and busy in your life, you're not really forced to like be, looking inward and to figure out, really how you feel deep down about yourself and the way you live and the people you keep around you and all of these things. And I think, there's a lot of emotions that come up around, just being with yourself, and and I think that's probably something I imagine a lot of people are right now kind of struggling with.
Yeah, I agree. I've been hearing a lot about that. How about you, Alicia or Anne Marie? How have you guys found that the situation has affected your mental health, and sort of what sort of things have you faced in terms of challenges?
Um, Me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Um, do you know what? I've been going through really different phases each week or even daily. I feel like when it first happened, I had been touring for maybe 6 years of my life before this, and I first of all was like, yes, finally a break. So I guess like the first few days I was really happy, and then it started to go a bit mental for me and a bit downhill, and I was I guess every day I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to feel in the morning because I don't quite know. And I also really struggle with routines, so not having like my career just taking me places, not knowing what's going to happen, which is what I really feel comfortable doing, and just waking up in the same place every day, same time. It's quite a struggle for me. So I guess I do have days where I'm so inspired and happy, and feel all of these great things, but I guess literally 50% of that as well is me struggling, trying to get my head around everything. So yeah, I think it's something that I want to bring to light as well, is that not everyone is gonna feel like this is a really great moment to find yourself. It's going to be a really struggling time, and I think I've experienced both of those. So I don't quite know where I am or what I'm doing at the moment. I'm just, every day is a new mountain to climb, I think.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
think
I feel
that's such a natural reaction. So many people feel like that. And I think we have to allow ourselves that, right? When we have a bad day, that's okay. That tomorrow might not look like that, but yeah, to allow ourselves that space for that. Alicia, did you have something you wanted to add as well?
Um,
Alessia?
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah, so I definitely feel that. I think it's very cyclical. It's not so much like a linear thing. I think every day is different. Like some days I'm like you said, Emery, like super inspired and like, oh, I want to do this. I'm like cooking, I'm doing all the stuff. I'm like, I totally got this. And then other days, like what you touched on, Ari, it's like you're kind of forced to sit with yourself and like look at parts of yourself that you normally wouldn't. And I'm not always good at that because I tend to distract a lot of the time, and I use my career and my busy life as a way to like distract myself. And then it's not until times like this where you like have to sit with all these feelings that you didn't even know you had, or things that you thought you were over that you're not over. And time kind of stops, you know, so you have to like
Mhm.
you're really forced to like be with yourself and look more inward and be very introspective, which is not always an easy thing for me, because I tend to just go places. But it's hard. It's hard to even talk about my mental health though, like in the midst of like a worldwide crisis in which like people are struggling circumstantially in areas that I'm not. So it's hard to find the balance because you almost feel guilty for feeling the things you're feeling because
Mhm.
you're like, there's so many people that are struggling right now. There's a person crawling by.
That was the cutest, funniest
Hope
thing
someone's
ever.
listening right now, because if not, that's terrifying if you're alone in the house because someone just crawled by. But yeah, so I guess it's like about allowing the space for you to feel what you're feeling no matter what, because every feeling is valid no matter the circumstance. But at the same time, recognizing, you know, the fact that we are okay and there are people
Mhm.
who are really, you know, dealing with a lot, and we got to make room for that too, acknowledging the areas where we are privileged too.
Mhm. Very
I feel like you're
true.
saying something so important. Like I think there's like yeah, it's like so much of like that duality. There's like both sides, you know, like and that's something that I struggled a lot with like in the beginning of like really recognizing what was going on with me mentally. It was like I had such a feeling of like and you know, I feel like I've had this for my whole life, you know, because to be totally like honest, like I would never pretend like I grew up in like some super dire circumstances, and not that I grew up like super wealthy or anything like that, but I've always had carry out on this feeling of like a lot of people have it worse than me, and like you know recognizing that and feeling this you know, responsibility and this natural feeling of like you know like oh my struggles aren't as bad as a lot of people or majority of people on the planet, therefore they're not valid. And I think that was something that I struggled a ton with, like is being like oh like you know the things that I'm obsessing about and like my negative thoughts and like the you know the ways in which I'm feeling depressed, like they're bad but not really as bad as I think a lot of other people feel, so really maybe I should just deal with it on my own. And I think it's like it is in some level healthy to recognize, to have that perspective and that objective feeling of like okay like you know people there are you know a lot things could be a lot worse, right? And there's a positive way to look at it as you know like oh I am fortunate that I'm not struggling you know on an even greater level. But I think, you know, where it becomes dangerous is when you like minimize your own struggle as well, because that doesn't do anybody else any good and it doesn't do yourself any good. So I feel like finding that balance of like, and that's been a hard thing for me, you know, in being sensitive and being, and yeah, and acknowledging the reality without kind of being like, oh, therefore, like I should be totally fine and like my sadness is not warranted and like, you know, fuck that. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of like an interesting balance to try to figure out.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
true.
Anyone who like
Yeah.
deals with you know, whether it's depression or anxiety or any sort of, you know, mental health struggle, like, you know, it's not as easy as turning a switch on and off. You know, if it was, then no one would be dealing with it. So you have to like, of course, acknowledge where you are and where other people are, but at the same time, like, don't feel guilty if you do feel the way you feel. Like, it's okay to feel that way, and it's okay to open up about it regardless of your circumstance, because it's not as easy as, I mean, I wish it were, but it's not as simple as like, I'm so lucky, everything's great. You know, unfortunately, sometimes your mind doesn't always agree with that, and it'll tell you things that aren't even true that you end up
Yeah.
believing about yourself, right? It's a very complicated, complex thing, the mind, and you know what it can do to you. So we have to keep that in mind also.
So to both of your points, what in those moments where you are struggling and you are feeling that, and it is valid, right? What are some ways that you have found have helped you cope? Like what is giving you happiness right now in those moments? That
I
to get you
I've
through?
been trying to do a lot of things really. I obviously have been learning to cook many new dishes of food. It's fun, and I've also been buying lots of plants, which seem to make me really happy. Um, I've been growing vegetables. I literally have been doing
Whoa.
everything. Yeah, I've been doing some
Great.
art. I'm not that good at art, but I've been drawing little things. And also speaking to my friends nearly like every day. I think this experience would have been totally different if I hadn't connected with my friends and family, because I just think they've made it all so much easier than what it would have been. And I haven't seen my friends and family in so long, not properly like this. So even though we're not allowed to see each other, I'm actually closer to them than I've been in years. So yeah, I've been doing a lot. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. You found things that work for you that feel comfortable and natural. Because I think we see things online or people will suggest things that just doesn't feel authentic to me or wouldn't work for me. So being able to find what works for you is so important. You're nodding your head. Do you have suggestions too that have worked for you?
Yeah. That last thing you said is like rings so true with me. I'm like the type of person that's always like watch an episode of a show for some reason. It's like I'm so anxious while I do stuff like that. It's so hard to just like let yourself sometimes like, I don't know, just like relax a little bit. Even though it's kind of important to build it, balance is like probably the most important thing in life. But it's been me trying to find like the authentic things that work for me. Cooking, unfortunately, isn't one of them. But I'm jealous of the people who are finding that pleasure in cooking. I wish I had the patience for it. But one thing that's really helping me cope is like meditation, and like I do a very specific type of meditation that's that starts with kind of the more simple, basic whatever, like habits of closing your eyes, breathing, imagining all of your like stress and anxiety sort of falling away, and finding yourself in the moment through sound and sensation, and body, being in touch with your body. But then a lot of it kind of develops into just opening my heart and speaking from my heart, either on FaceTime with somebody else. I'll literally meditate with a friend of mine, or just to myself, and sort of do like, honestly, like non-religious prayer. I'm not really a religious person, but I'm a spiritual person, and sort of like start speaking about people that I love and people I want to send love to. And gratitude is a huge thing. And just, I think like you sort of think like, oh yeah, like saying like I'm thankful for basic stuff, like yeah, cool, whatever. But like there's so much power when you start like literally speaking every single thing that you're thankful for, and speaking about all the people that you love, and counting every single blessing. And like like I'll say things like like let us be guided, and like let us trust the guidance, and like let us trust like our guts, and like a lot of stuff that sounds a little weird, but I think there's so much power in speaking and trying to manifest that way. And it just improves your mood like that, like just so, for me, like so instantly and so profoundly, that's been a huge coping mechanism for me, for sure.
That's great. Yeah, and you touched on gratitude. I was going to say, Sophia, I saw you nodding.
There's an exercise that I started doing like a year ago that really helped me, and I called it highlights. This exercise, my psychologist, like, she shared it with me and everything, and I would like, before going to sleep, write down 3 to 5 things that for me were a highlight during the day. But simple stuff like the water when I showered because of this, or the coffee, blah blah blah, stuff like that. And for a year, I literally wrote them all, and I used to share them in my stories and stuff, and people started doing it as well. And it got to a point where I don't do them anymore, but during my day, it's like an automatic thing. So whatever I'm doing, I'm thinking, this is a highlight, this is a highlight. And it's like being aware. It's like, yeah, just being conscious about these little things that just make your day way, better. And it helped me a lot. So yeah.
And I think it's great because I think all these things we've been talking about so far are things we can be using now, right? And like your list, you're almost like a gratitude list, are things even after this is over with, we can sort of refer back to, right? Because we know that they've gotten us through some of those hardest times. And so those can be kind of building a toolbox of what we know works when we're having a difficult time. And I think, Alicia, you brought up earlier about how you kind of don't really know what people are going through, right? Everybody's kind of going through different hardships right now. Not everybody really is as lucky as we are, right? I mean, some people right now have parents who might have lost a job, or maybe they're stuck in homes that they don't feel safe in. And I think it's important to remember that you don't always know what people are going through, right? And so being kind to others, I think, can really help ease some of that person's pain. And I was curious from all of you, sort of what action right now have you taken or are you planning to take to help others in this time?
I mean, I'm doing a lot of work helping charities. We have the NHS here, which is amazing for us. So I'm helping raise money for the NHS and charities that involve children. And I know that there's been a rise in calls to do with domestic abuse at this time. So I feel like I need to somehow get involved in that. I think for me in my life, I really want to be involved in charities as much as possible anyway, but this has just made it even more of a hunger that I need to really be at the forefront of it all and really try hard to get involved with as many charities as possible, and really small charities as well. I think they're, the ones that I need to be close to. So yeah, I'm just trying my hardest to do that at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. I think even I mean, it's so easy to like feel a little helpless when this thing feels like so much bigger than us a lot of the time. But I think the best thing is to start small, start local. Not only like in your inner circle of friends and family, reaching out to people that might not be in this as good of a situation as you're in their home life or things like that, but also like just supporting like little small local restaurants, the local coffee shop, as opposed to like ordering from like bigger franchises. Like help the local areas stay open and things like that. I think starting small, starting locally, starting in your inner circle are ways to have it not feel so much bigger than us, because it's so easy, like I said, to just feel helpless when you're stuck at home and you feel like you don't know what to do. So I've been trying to do a lot of that, and doing a lot of like live concerts, as a lot of artists are doing, like little live, whether it's like, I don't know, just like live streams, live concerts, things like that, to raise some money for charities. And yeah, just doing our part.
I feel like it's so easy to kind of like end up feeling a little bit defeatist, because it's like so many problems in this world almost feel like totally insurmountable, and it's like, oh, like what can I really do? It's like I could do this thing, but it's not really going to help that much. But I think it's it's like it's powerful to recognize, just like any little bit can help, so it's like I think it's amazing. Like I feel like so many artists are doing these live streams, like myself included, trying to raise money and making donations where possible. But I also, Leslie, what you're saying about just like starting small and like I don't know, something that one of my best friends told me once. I don't know if this like totally applies here, but it just kind of came to mind. And it, again, maybe it sounds kind of hokey, and I hope I'm not becoming one of those people that's like, you're like, ooh, like maybe he's a little weird. But he once told me, it's like when you heal yourself, you heal everybody around you, And so like I've started to notice, like as I've become like more in touch with this like practice of meditation and like really focusing on like getting into a better mindset and like getting more in touch with the deeper parts of myself, I find myself more naturally inclined to pay more attention to the people around me that I feel like, maybe are hurting, and trying to find ways to just like, I don't know, like, yeah, be more in touch with them and spend more time, like, speaking to them. And I find myself, like, yeah, it's like focusing on little things, like talking to your family a lot more and talking to your friends a lot more. It's like small stuff like that can help. Cause it's like sometimes like I find myself being like so focused on like, how can I help, like, people that I've never seen, never touched before, like, like never been in person with, and like, have no grasp on. And I think that's super important, but it's also like you have people right in front of you. You have like your family, you have your friends, like a lot of people are struggling right around you. And it's honestly one of the easiest things you can do is to just be there for them, and to speak and to have like real conversation. And I think it's important to remember like that we all have the power to do that, no matter if you have money, if you don't have money. That's something that like everybody can do, is emotionally be present for the people in your life and be supportive. And yeah, I think that's something really powerful that everybody can do.
I agree. Real quick, my group of friends here and I, like, we have this like WhatsApp group chat where every day at 9:30 in the morning, someone goes live. We have this private Instagram as well, called like Collective Elevation something, long name. And we go live 9:30. We decide like who wants to speak every single day, and we always like change. Um, it always changes the person that's going to speak. And we like share a meditation or something we've been thinking about this week. And the whole point of it is about us sharing ourselves and see how we can like elevate each other as a community of friends that we. I think that's something that has really been really helpful for us, really inspiring. So that's cool.
Yeah, I think I love that. I think just being able, this has given us time, to be more reflective and more intentional about our own lives, right? I think a lot of us can speak about how we're connecting to others maybe we haven't talked to in a long time, or doing kind of weekly chats with people, in groups. It is a time where we can be supportive of one another and learn, I think, from one another. And I think what we're doing today is doing that. It's providing hope in a time of difficulty and for some people, darkness, right? And so I wanted to, before we go on to some questions from the audience, I just want to let people know too, if they are feeling like they are having difficulty, that they can reach out to our hotline. It is open now. It's open from 6 to 9 every night, and you can text TEEN to 839-863. That's TEEN to 839-863. And then also there's coping skills on all of our social media platforms too at Teen Line Online. So just want to make sure people know about that as well. But I love these beautiful suggestions you all have made, and I think we can really put these into play and during kind of this difficult shared experience that we're having. So I want to move on to make sure that we get some questions answered by some of the fans that are tuning in today. I think we'll start out. The first question comes from Lindsay on Instagram. What's the best advice you've ever been given to cope with depression or anxiety?
Ooh, that's so hard. There's so many. That's such a like question. It's so vast. Oh man. I don't know if does anybody have like a singular answer? I don't know if I have a singular answer. I feel like my answer would be it would be like a 7-paragraph essay. That's what I feel like so much of this conversation. I was so nervous to have this conversation, but then we get into it, and honestly, like I'm so unbelievably elated and grateful for this right now. I just have to say, like, it's really cool to be able to do this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've been trying to hold in my cry.
What's that?
I think at the beginning when you were all talking, I was just like, try not to cry. I was like, well, I was so I just feel a bit emotional, I think you realize, even though this conversation right now for us is between 5 of us, I think it's just so great to know how everyone is feeling, and I hope that everyone watching this feels that too, because I'm sure they think of us as people that, we have a lot and we have this stuff, and we should all be happy, but we also are struggling. So hopefully this is helping some people. Sorry, I feel really emotional.
No, I think that's beautifully said. It really is a shared human experience, right? And I think when we make ourselves vulnerable, I think it allows other people the permission to be vulnerable. So yeah, what we're doing here today, I think is important.
I feel like that vulnerability is like probably the most key word in terms of dealing with like depression and anxiety. Like, I feel like I don't know. I feel like there was just an example, maybe more so than like a specific piece of advice. There's an example of a person in my life who was super present and there for me, when I was really didn't understand what I was going through, and really didn't understand my state of existence as, something that could be clinical depression, and didn't even understand truly like what OCD even really meant and like the various forms. And I think, just like that example of somebody being unbelievably, like always like there for you and patient and allowing you to be vulnerable. Like, I feel like on either side, if you're really experiencing it, like just to be totally vulnerable. And like in so many experiences in life, or I find in so many moments, we're filtering ourselves and thinking about what we should say or what we want to say. And to be honest, like what we feel deep, like words have been like created as a way to like sort of express how we feel, but they're not really how we feel, in the best case scenario, they're close to how we feel, and they're extremely close to how we feel. But I think the way we get the closest to like addressing our problems is to just be very, very, very open, where you're not thinking about what should I say, what am I feeling, you're just straight up speaking from your heart and allowing that, to come out, whether that be, to a friend or a family member, or, you know, if you can be seeing a therapist, or even, you know, to an open forum on the internet, whether that's anonymous or not, like having an opportunity to do that is so powerful because it's such a release. It helps you realize really what you're going through, and it helps you get context and support from other people. And then I think from the other side, just being that, if you can be that person who, when you sense somebody else is struggling, to just be patient with them, you know, and to create a safe space for them, that is so powerful. Because I can just speak from personal experience. Like, I was so intimidated and, you know, like struggling with all sorts of voices in my head that told me like what I was going through wasn't really that bad, and I had to deal with it myself, and I had to solve this problem to get through it, and not really, like, I feel like not really being able to deal with it until I felt like, oh, I'm not going to be constantly annoying this person because they're actually there for me, you know, and they're listening. And yeah, so I feel like that was kind of a
I think
ramble, but
no, I think that that's really well said, right? None of us feel like our problem's big enough to do it. And if we tell somebody, we might be bothering them or be a burden to them. But I think it's so important to be able to express that, because I think there's so much shared experiences we're even having in this conversation that a lot of us are having these same feelings. And so being able to talk about it is really important. So I guess one of the questions that actually came up from a fan on Instagram was, you know, how do you get that conversation started? How do you start talking about your own mental health to family or friends?
Hard. It's a very difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I always find that it's very hard for me to put things into words. Like, because I'm still trying to figure out what it all means in my own head. So I think like saying it to someone else and saying it out loud is a really weird thing to explain and to get out. So it's challenging, but I think, I don't know, you just have to be honest. You can't have the fear of, or I mean, you can, of course, but I mean, try not to have the fear of being judged, or, you know, I don't know. It's hard. I don't even have a piece of advice for it, because I'm still figuring out how to like explain it to people or even talk about it publicly, because it's something that I deal with so personally in my head that it's hard for me to like make sense of it like out loud. But yeah, just like, I don't know. I try not to like feel like they're judging me, because it's very easy to think, like you said, like, you know, I'm like a burden on these people for talking about, like, you know, I always feel like I'm like bringing down their mood, when that's not the case. And if your family and friends like really care about you, which of course they do, it's never going to feel like that to them. But I guess it just feels heavier in our heads because we deal with it. I don't know, but just know that like people aren't judging you, and everybody deals with it. Like there's similarities in every feeling, no matter how foreign it seems.
Mm-hmm. What's interesting, we're not hard on other people, we're so hard on ourselves, right?
Oh
And just
yeah.
and I think, you know, once you start opening up to someone about what's going on, it actually helps them to be able to help you. So it is really kind of a beautiful experience, shared experience together, to be able to do that. But it is difficult, and sometimes it just starts in little small conversations, and then it goes from there. So
You can start maybe with your journal or something, because sometimes I think it's even hard for us to be vulnerable with our own journal somehow. I don't know, that happens to me sometimes. And in my case, many of the things I was like struggling was like family stuff, like normal things, but I couldn't even communicate it with my parents, you know, because there are many topics that in my family they're like taboo and stuff. And I don't know, coming from Latin America, we in some are a little sometimes behind in some things. I don't know how to explain it, but I just felt like I couldn't talk about some things. So in my case, having a psychologist, it's been like one of the most amazing things that I've ever, you know, done in my life. A decision that, you know, that changed my life. And I started seeing her maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, because she's someone that has nothing to do with like my closest friends or like, you know, my people. So I just felt like I could say everything. And it's so interesting for me how we find out things about ourselves when we speak them out loud, because we don't even say them in our head sometimes. So when you're speaking with someone, you're like, oh fuck, I just figured out what I wanted to, you know. Sorry because I said a bad word. But yeah, I think speaking with someone, just like letting yourself be helps a lot, and especially if it's someone that has nothing to do with it, like your closest people. I don't know if that makes sense. But yeah.
So I'm curious, what would you say to a friend that you might come across that's struggling right now? Is there anything you would say to them that you feel might help them either be vulnerable or to open up a bit?
I think like, oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, please.
No, you go. I feel like I'm talking so much. I need to like zip my mouth shut, like maybe for permanence.
My thought,
And I'm
my
sorry,
thought was
that was
like,
a,
no, sorry, what?
oh, sorry, that
My
was a
thought,
question actually from Laura, Philadelphia, sorry.
Laura.
Go ahead.
My quick thought was just like be present and like be for them, listen to them, but for real, like be, as Ari was saying before, like just being present with them, and like empathy for me is like key, and literally empathize. I don't know how to say it, but with empathize with your friends and people. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what were you gonna say, Ari?
No,
No,
I was just gonna say, yeah, like I think sometimes it can be very like intimidating, because it's like, okay, like how can I be the best person? And it's just like be yourself, find whatever version of being yourself and being supportive is. For me, it's like, like I will be there for you no matter what. Like I think when somebody knows that you will be there for them, like the same way, like if you were to imagine, I think everybody who's, here and who's watching this would, if somebody were to come to them, would be so supportive. And I think it's important to recognize that from both sides, even if you're the person struggling, to remember like, oh yeah, my friend would be there for me. I think sometimes we're like, oh yeah, I don't want to be a burden, and we talk about that. But I think like you'd be surprised, the people in your life will be there for you, will be receptive. Because I think when people are truly vulnerable, like people tend to listen, when you speak from your heart and you're like really real about what you say, like people listen. So yeah, I think part of that was sort of off topic, but yeah, I don't know, just expressing that you're, no matter what it is, I mean, the conversation develops over time, but I think the first step is just being like, yo, like I'm here for you, like I'm here for you, I'm listening, like you can say anything to me, and I won't judge you. Because I think probably one of the biggest factors where I think, maybe a lot of people have trouble opening up in today's world, especially, I think we're so used to like not really having a totally private life, like not even just like artists, but people, because everything is sort of to be shared for everybody. It's like, you look at TikTok and, people are sharing like outing like exes, for cheating, and like also like there's nothing that's private anymore. And so I think it's sort of intimidating to feel like, can I really open up? Is that's judged forever by the entire world? You know what I mean? And that's kind of a scary thought. So I think like being that person who in a private setting can be really like, yo, like I'm not going to judge you, like this isn't something, you know what I mean? Like you just have that extreme openness. Because I think in today's world, like it's intimidating because you feel like you'll be judged for every single thing you ever do ever for the rest of your life. And it's just like, what?
Sure.
Also, like having
No,
the
but I think that's
patience.
it.
Sorry. Just having the patience to wait for them to open up as well. I think you can ask them how they are, and the first, second, third, fourth time they can say they're fine. But I think if you really have that gut feeling that your friend is feeling a sort of way, then just be patient, and hopefully they'll feel okay to open up at some point. Just being there again, same as what you said earlier, really.
Yeah, it's beautifully said. Empathetic, open, be patient, keep inquiring, and letting them know that you're going to be there. Yeah, I think that's very. So besides I know some of you are talking about how it was an outlet to be able to be at home and creating your own music, right? But besides your own music, what songs or artists have you been listening to or has been your go-to during this time? Mexico City.
Unlock the Swag by Ray Shremmerd. Great song.
I have to check.
I found these guys called Hermanos Gutierrez. I think they're Spanish. I don't know. There's no lyrics. There are no lyrics in their music, but it's such a good vibe, like Spanish guitars. But like you can listen to them all day, Hermanos Gutierrez. I swear they're gonna change your life. It's so good. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm gonna look that up.
Um,
I've been listening to lots of Coldplay. I think Chris Martin has like a calming aspect to his writing and his voice that just makes me feel like fine. You know, he's just so good. I mean, their latest album, they put out an album that's so good, and it like they talk kind of oddly about a situation similar to kind of what we're dealing with now. Like it's very like socially conscious, but also like has enough like escapism in it to like feel good. You know, it's like the perfect balance, which I've been listening to a lot.
Nice.
I've been listening to honestly everything, like all of new music, all of the old music I grew up listening to. I've just been having a really good time revisiting music that I used to listen to when I was a kid. But I really love to be emotional when I listen to music. So I've been listening to a lot of this UK rapper called Wretch 32, and his lyrics are so incredible, and I feel like you could just listen to his music and just feel like you're not in this moment, you know? So I feel like he is a great person to listen to right now.
Great. So I have a question for you from Abigail from Los Angeles. If you could sum up the message of your music in one sentence, what would it be? Kind of a hard. As we talked about, it's.
Anyone?
Who's going to take a crack at that?
Is that all of us?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we should each do it.
No pressure.
One word or one sentence?
Just one sentence or one thought that sort of describes the nature of your music.
Hella lit and emotional.
I like it.
Nice.
I would say in one word, I would pick human, because I tend to write about life and real stuff. So yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. I'd say also like authentic to myself, I guess. I don't know. It's a really hard question.
It is.
I don't even know. Honest, I guess. That's like such a lame word, but I mean that's all I got.
No, it's great. Great. And I think for our final question from Haley in Utah, what are you most excited to do once the quarantine has been lifted and are allowed to return to a somewhat normal life? Imagine right at this moment, but I'm sure we've all thought about.
Going to get a margarita the size of my head at El Tejano.
Yeah.
Oh,
In my
Yeah.
case, just do a really long party with my friends since like maybe 10 in the morning or something. Like a pool party. We'll get super drunk, hug each other, celebrate life until next day or something. And then get a flight to see my family in Mexico and my friends in Mexico. And also I want to start travel. Like I love to do this improvised like 3-day kind of trips whenever I can. So I start like doing road trips and stuff like that. That's like what I'm thinking right now.
Yeah, I agree. Traveling for sure. I'm excited to do that again. You don't realize how much you're gonna miss it until you don't have it. And you're like, oh, I love traveling. It's so amazing. Yeah, I can't wait to just get out of the country and like go to Europe again, see cobblestone roads again.
I think for me it would just be like going for a meal with my friends in a restaurant, because I used to be that person that was like, no, I'm staying in tonight, I'm sorry, and I used to not really go out and do that kind of stuff, and I think I took that for granted a lot. So I'm gonna go and have loads of restaurant meals when this is over.
For sure.
Well, and it's funny because we're so digitally connected, but I think this is such a reminder of how much social connection really means to all of us in just so many different ways. because we're really all craving it. And even though we're all talking to each other, there's still that need to want to be in groups of people and wanting, I think for me, I miss hugs. I just want to hug people. I think, it's just, yeah. Thank you, Ari. Just a full hug, I can already feel it. But it is those small things I think that we don't think about on a day-to-day basis that really, we'll be looking forward to. Well, I wanted to say thank you all so much for making yourselves vulnerable, about opening up about your own experiences, and really sharing a part of yourself and sort of what helps you. Because I think a lot of people listening today are really feeling the exact same ways and can really relate to a lot of what you've said and are able to sort of take things away from this, to be easier on themselves, to look within themselves, to allow themselves to open up to others, and be able to use some of the suggestions that you had all mentioned to help them get through this time. So we greatly appreciate you all being here and taking the time out of your busy schedules and lives. And thank you so much.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank
Thank
you
you
guys
for
so much.
everything. Thank you
Oh,
for your
Thank you.
your time and everything you do, and everyone else in here. I love you all so much. It's
yeah,
lovely to
love
see your
you.
faces. I love you guys.
It's wonderful to connect.
Yes. Yeah. I was so nervous for, because it's nerve-wracking to do something like this, like in front of however many people are watching right now. Hi. But yeah, thank you guys so much for all just being real and like opening up. I mean, that's what it's all about, It's like conversation like this, just like totally opening up is it's just so powerful, and I appreciate you guys so much. And yeah, after this, let's all hang.
Yeah, no, right? Soon, hopefully.
Yeah.
For sure. Have a nice day, guys. Thank you
Have
so
a
much.
wonderful day. Thank you all so much. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Everyone.